My issue with Dirty Work, and now Rich Man as well, points to a larger tension not just for aespa, but for K-pop as a whole. On first impression, Rich Man has landed with quite a loud thud for me. It seems like it should work, but yet again, collapses under the weight of its own polish in the exact same way as Dirty Work. On the surface, it's pulling from aesthetics that K-pop hasn't explored too deeply yet. Grunge rock textures, a rugged swag? Why did I write that down? Who cares? A rugged swag and a slightly tongue-in-cheek take on wealth and desire. Yet, the further you peel back, the more it becomes clear that Rich Man is less an aespa track and actually just a mannequin of one. Posed very well, but so hollow inside. I think the problem begins at the level of genre. Grunge and garage aesthetics rely on imperfections. They breathe through distortion and very uneven edges. The appeal of these genres has always been in their refusal to be neat. Rich Man gestures towards that ruggedness in the guitar stabs and pseudo-rough vocal filters, but then sands it down until all of that texture is gone. This is the singular problem that causes Rich Man to fall apart. The texture to this song was just completely removed. What's left is the silhouette of grunge without any of its bite. aespa's trademark sheen takes over, and suddenly, the song feels too polished to embody the grit it's borrowing from. I listened to the demo against my better judgment, and I am furious with SM. The demo to Rich Man has the grungy texture vocally and sonically. SM made the choice to take it all away.
Okay, listen up, let me mansplain. Let me talk down what we dictate. Don't care about what they say. 날 밀어넣고 멋대로 굴 때. Tell me to calm down, I'm crazy. Hear this shit on the daily. Tranquilize and sedate me. Don't care about what they say. 날 밀어내고 함부로 굴 때. Oh, hit it, okay, 쓰면은.
And then lyrically, the dissonance only deepens. aespa have always thrived on narratives that heighten reality into something uncanny, whether that's the AI mythology of their debut or the surreal bravado of songs like Drama and Supernova. But in Rich Man, the lyrics flatten into cliché, very generic flexes and surface-level depictions of power and a little bit of attraction. The gritty, world-building kind of lyrics from the demo, quote, listen up, let me mansplain, let me talk down, let me dictate, are abandoned for something a little bit more safe, which feels bad for a song with a narrative such as this one. Again, with what we have left, the bravado doesn't spiral into exaggeration or surrealism. It just sits there, untransformed by anything. In aespa's best works, the lyrics don't just ride the production, they kind of work to twist it in some ways, undercut the sounds or amplify the contradictions. Here, the words are interchangeable with any other mid-tier pop song, leaving the production to shoulder all of the identity, and the production itself has already been smoothed way too thin. The final product is underwhelming and frustrating, as I grasp with the sheer potential here to do something that would service aespa's intentions on expanding the scope of their style and identity. The bones of Rich Man feel imported wholesale, lifted from Western grunge pop trends without meaningful transformations. It's aespa putting on clothes that don't fit them, but instead of tailoring the outfit into something new as they have before, they simply just cinched it tight, hoping polish will disguise the mismatch. This, to me, is what makes Rich Man ring so hollow. It's not just that it's a weaker song, it's that it lacks the tension that makes aespa who they are. Their best tracks thrive on contradiction. You know, spicy warped Y2K nostalgia into something industrial and uncanny. Drama inflated trap pop into camp theater, and Supernova turned techno repetition into something hypnotic and alien. Each time, aespa didn't just borrow the genre, they bent it until it reflected their unsettling and exaggerated identity. Rich Man, by contrast, plays the genre safely, and when aespa plays safely, they sound like anyone else. To try and look on the other side of this though, I think there is a kind of generosity in looking at Rich Man as an experiment. It's aespa trying on skin they haven't worn before, and even if it doesn't resonate for some people, it reveals something about their boundaries, right? aespa's power has never been in straightforward trend chasing, and deeper within that, in regards to Rich Man, the power has never been in pulling straightforward from anything. It's in their ability to exaggerate, to make what's familiar feel so strange yet accessible. When they forget that, they lose the uncanny spark that made them a phenomenon in the first place. But aespa don't necessarily need to remain locked into their cybergrunge, uncanny valley aesthetic forever, right? In fact, broadening their palette could be crucial for their longevity. A song like Rich Man, if nothing else, suggests a pivot, a kind of move that could, in theory, expand aespa's range and prevent their identity from solidifying, or I guess calcifying, into a single visual or sonic trope. And so, with this in mind, the core of the issue then becomes less that aespa are leaving the uncanny valley behind, and more that they're not replacing it with something equally as compelling. I think Dirty Work is the clearest example. On paper, it borrows from grunge palettes with a guitar-driven backbone, but the execution feels so strangely hollow. The production is clean, where it should be messy. Meanwhile, the lyrics don't lock into that sonic direction. They're too slight, too surface level to give the track any kind of narrative weight. I don't compare these songs maliciously to something like Le Seraphim's 1-800 Hot and Fun, which also leans heavily into these grunge textures. What makes Hot and Fun effective is not just the heaviness of the production, but the way the lyrics, sardonic and playful, sit so naturally in that soundscape. The grit in the guitars reflects the bite in the words, and the way they're flippantly delivered at first as a passing remark and then a shout into the chorus, so the whole thing feels cohesive. With Dirty Work and Rich Man, that cohesion within the grunge isn't there. The sound palette gestures add a new territory, but the narrative voice doesn't quite support it, and the production lacks the kind of textured boldness we've come to expect from aespa. The result is that these tracks feel more like sketches than products, and when your group's brand is built on making songs that sound like nothing else, a half-committed pivot like Rich Man reads more like absence of identity rather than expansion. The title Rich Man and Giselle's spoken word introduction clearly wants to draw from Cher's famous line.
This suggests that you're becoming mellow.
My mother would be glad to hear you say that. My mother's waiting for me to grow old and settle down, marry a rich man.
I thought in your case it'd be the other way around. You know,
No.
Lots of poor guys want to marry you.
No, my mother said, Cher, when you get older, I wish you'd hurry to get older so that you would settle down and marry a rich man. And I said, Mom, I am a rich man. You know, it's like I don't have to marry one.
A declaration of self-sufficiency and defiance against the structures that measure power only through men. It's a phrase that has become shorthand for independence and the refusal to be defined by someone else's wealth or validation. But I don't think aespa's Rich Man captures that essence. Instead of embodying Cher's bite, the song dilutes into aesthetic posturing. The grunge guitars suggest rebellion, but the vocal delivery and lyrics circle around generic ideas of desire and power without ever crystallizing into something subversive or self-possessed. Yeah, I think that's it. Rich Man quotes the attitude but misses Cher's argument. aespa has the perfect platform to twist this iconic phrase into their own uncanny brand of empowerment, to exaggerate it, to warp it into something camp or surreal or, at the very least, something distinctly theirs. Instead, the song presents the surface but not the substance. And that's ultimately why the track feels as hollow as Dirty Work to me. Rich Man gestures at empowerment, but without the conceptual exaggeration to make it believable. Mom, I am a rich man is not just a witty response, it's a kind of philosophy or way of being. It rejects the cultural framework that measures women's worth by proximity to wealth or men's power. It reframes wealth itself as autonomy, the ability to live by one's own terms. It's freedom, right? There's grit in that, a refusal to romanticize dependency, and that's what makes it timeless. I'm left imagining what that ethos could look like paired with aespa's grunge concept. Grunge as a sound thrives on abrasion, deliberately messy textures. It's a genre born out of disillusionment, the refusal to fit into neatly packaged narratives of success or happiness. If Rich Man the song had really leaned into Cher's declaration, it could have taken that raw sonic palette and turned it into a sonic metaphor for independence, paired with riffs that grind against expectation, vocals delivered with irony or at least a bite or a rasp. And maybe above all else, lyrics that subvert the trope of wanting a rich man by reworking it into a refusal of being saved by anyone. Instead, and in the end, I think Rich Man makes the mistake of taking the language of grunge and smoothing it down to K-pop's glossy finish. Cher's statement is all about stripping away that illusion and saying, this is who I am, and I don't need someone else to complete the image that is me. Grunge could have carried that essence, messy, abrasive, but so deeply sincere. Again, it's a missed opportunity here, another layer of the building frustration of what all it could have been. It borrows the aesthetic of rebellion but doesn't dive into the messy contradictions that make rebellion feel real and authentic. A version more true to Cher's line should have embraced the imperfections we hear in the demo, letting the song sort of fray at the edges and allowing the lyrics to taunt the idea of needing anyone at all. In the end, the bones of a great concept are once again there, a grunge backdrop in the shadow of Cher's iconic philosophy, but the execution never lets the track breathe into its own potential. So, I'm a little disappointed once again, but disappointment does not mean doom. aespa are a group with a staggering amount of potential, and their history shows that they can strike the balance between concept, sound, style, and narrative, all in a way that feels both daring and true to their identity. What Rich Man lacks is production that's willing to take risks, to let the edges stay sharp and cutting rather than sanding them smooth. That is not an impossible fix. In fact, it's probably one of the simplest adjustments SM could make going forward. So Rich Man leaves me wanting so much more, but it's also a reminder in some ways of how much more aespa are capable of. Their strongest songs prove that they can turn high concept ideas into bold, culture-defining pop music. If SM gives them the space to embrace the grit rather than hide it, aespa can easily reclaim the inventive, otherworldly style that first set them apart. So, we move regardless. This is what I think. Thank you for watching this. If you did, let me know what you think about Rich Man. Do you see its effects and, I guess, musical outcomes in a different way? Does the song work for you? And things like that. Yes, thanks again for watching. Subscribe if you want to, and I will see you next time.